Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Secretary, thank you so much for your time here today. I want to commend the administration's efforts to hold the Chinese accountable. I think it's clear to everyone that they undermine our economy, they undermine our workers, and holding them accountable is certainly the right thing to do. I would also ask the administration to try to do right by our friends and allies throughout the world, the Europeans, here in the Americas, the Argentinians are concerned. These are countries that are trying to do right by the United States and by their own people, and strongly encourage you to do everything you can to accommodate them so that we can continue building those important alliances and friendships. And I agree. I think trade is best conducted, business is best conducted with people with whom we share values. And I think as long as the administration's policy fits that idea, I think it can be successful. But there are some very obvious risks that you have heard repeated here numerous times today. I want to bring a separate issue, but that's very important to the farmer community in my district. South Florida is home to the largest one of the largest ag-producing areas in the state of Florida. The warm weather in South Florida allows our farmers to grow crops there year-round. Despite a long-standing suspension agreement designed under U.S. trade laws to eliminate the injurious effect of the dump imports, Mexican tomatoes, Mr. Secretary, continue to surge into the U.S. market, impacting the domestic tomato industry. Lack of enforcement and circumvention of these agreements since put in place in 1996 has intensified, as within that period, one of the most recent suspension agreements alone, 2014 to 16, imports from Mexico have risen 21.5%, while U.S. production has fallen 14%. This comes on the heels of a 303% increase in Mexican tomato imports over the last 25 years, with Mexico supplanting the U.S. as a dominant supplier in the U.S. market, all with supposed anti-dumping trade remedies in place. This is threatening the future of Florida and the larger domestic tomato industry. So, Mr. Secretary, I understand you are negotiating for a new anti-dumping suspension agreement with Mexican tomato exporters. Can you assure the committee that you will work with the U.S. tomato industry to get an agreement that will eliminate the injury dumped Mexican tomatoes are inflicting on the domestic tomato industry?
I've spent a lot of time, as you know, with the Tomato Growers Association in Florida, and at their request, we reopened with the consent of the Mexicans, the suspension agreement. It really has not worked the way that it was intended to, and that's unfortunately true of many of the trade agreements this country has had. We're trying to fix it.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. I yield back.